There are so many gardening tips out there that it can all be a bit overwhelming, especially to beginning gardeners. And unfortunately, some of these tips may lead you to waste money on products you don't need or waste your time on methods that don't work. I started my popular gardening tips you can probably ignore series in hopes of helping you weed out tips that won't help you grow more food and won't help you save time and money. In today's installment, I'll cover 4 more gardening tips that you can probably ignore. The first tip you can ignore is to apply used coffee grounds to the soil around your acid-loving plants like blueberries to make the soil more acidic. The first part of this advice is perfectly fine. You can use coffee grounds as part of your mulch, and you can add them to compost. They provide a slow release of nitrogen as they break down, and they contain plant-available phosphorus and potassium, but they won't make your soil more acidic. The acids in coffee are water-soluble, and therefore they're transferred to the liquid coffee during the brewing process. The used grounds after brewing will have a pH that's pretty close to neutral, just slightly acidic usually, and they're not nearly acidic enough to change the pH of soil. In our case, we've added thousands of pounds of used coffee grounds to the garden over the years, but our soil pH remains slightly alkaline. So by all means, use coffee grounds as part of your mulch layer and in your compost, but just keep in mind it won't make your soil more acidic for plants like blueberries. We add elemental sulfur to our blueberry beds to make the soil more acidic for our blueberries. The second tip you can ignore is to backfill planting holes with organic matter like compost when planting trees. Now this tip intuitively seems to make sense because the compost will have more nutrients, better aeration, and better water holding capacity. And initially the plants get off to a great start as the roots quickly grow to fill up the planting hole. But what happens when the roots hit the native soil surrounding the planting hole? Unfortunately, when the roots hit the native soil at the edge of the planting hole, that soil is likely to have less nutrients and be less well aerated than the compost. As a result, the roots may act as if they're hitting the edge of a container and start circling around the inside of the planting hole rather than branching out into the native soil. Over time, this can result in stunted growth and other plant health issues. A better approach is to backfill the planting hole with the native soil itself. Multiple scientific studies have shown that this is more effective at growing strong, healthy trees with well-developed root systems than filling the hole with compost or a combination of the native soil and the compost. When you backfill with native soil, the roots will branch out into the soil in search of water and nutrients instead of remaining confined in the planting hole. After backfilling with native soil, you can apply compost and mulch to the soil surface. The third tip you can ignore is to add sugar to the soil or water with sugar water in order to grow sweeter tomatoes. The idea behind this tip is that the sugar will be absorbed up into the plant, resulting in sweeter fruit. Unfortunately, it doesn't work this way, and adding sugar to the soil won't give you sweeter tomatoes. If you like really sweet tomatoes, make sure your plants get plenty of sun and you harvest the fruit when they're fully ripe. Also make sure to grow varieties that are known to be sweet. Oftentimes, cherry tomatoes and other small varieties are the sweetest. Some of our favorites include black cherry, sweet million, and Isis candy. Finally, make sure there's sufficient nutrients and organic matter in your soil for healthy tomato growth. In our case, compost, vermicompost, and mulch get the job done. A soil test will tell you what your soil needs. The fourth tip to ignore is to avoid planting squash and pumpkins in the same garden because the plants will produce a cross between the squash and pumpkins. We'll call them squmpkins, instead of the squash and pumpkins that you planted. Though it's true that squash and pumpkins are related and can cross-pollinate, you're not going to see the outcome of that cross-pollination until the next generation. So you'd have to save the seeds and then plant them in the future before you'd see the cross. So by all means, grow squash and pumpkins in the same garden. You'll only need to take measures to prevent cross-pollination if you plan on saving seeds to grow in the future. Thank you for watching this installment in my Popular Gardening Tips You Can Probably Ignore series. My hope is that this series will help save you time and money by avoiding products and methods that don't help you grow more food, don't save you money, and don't save you time. For more videos in this series, please see this link. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more videos on how to grow a lot of food on a little land without spending much or working harder than you have to.